A couple of papers that I really liked. Here's one by Amanda for week one. As you can tell, some of the papers I like the formality of this paper. It has the headings and so forth. It's easy to follow. The grammar and organization is really well done. Um, you note the citations here in text, which is helpful. But I wanted to, especially I liked the moral dilemma that was stressed here. And this was a point that I wanted to point out. Some of you didn't quite understand what we were looking for. Most of the prompts ask you, one of the final parts of the prompt asks to record an ethical dilemma inspired by the reading. So in this case, she looks at the observing the Sabbath as the fourth commandment and the problems that creates for a person who is trying to support a family. And so this is a great example of the ethical dilemmas that come up as just part of being a person living a life where we try to observe the difference between our conscience and our duty. And so in many cases, some of the best responses highlighted those kinds of instances. So that's a really nice job. Here's one by Anna, which I also liked. And as you can see, once again, here the prompt question is repeated and then a short paragraph. And this is really a nice way of doing it. And I especially like the outlining of the different examples and the perspectives here as to prescriptive versus proscriptive. So this is a really nice way of organize your writing. This is a very extensive example. I'm not sure whether you'll have this kind of time in the future to do this sort of work on all the prompts. Because I think you're going to find yourself really jammed for time. So sometimes organizing things very concisely will help you address the prompt very concisely. And then this is, the dilemma is also very interesting too. This responds to the question about divorce and adultery. And Anna's response really brings out sort of a modern perspective about the problem of a woman responding to these sort of traditional prescriptive and proscriptive conditions where our modern sentiment reflects greater respect for individual dignity and respect that even steps outside of these traditional roles that women and men played in traditional societies. So I really thought this was an interesting response also. Dawn's response also uses this same kind of organization, which is really nicely done, which follows this order, makes it very simple to read and follow, and her discussion is really, really nicely done. The ethical dilemma also was very interesting too, and this is about the commandment of murder and trying to adhere to these proscriptions. It makes apparent then that does this apply in all situations and in all times? And so this is kind of a lovely discussion then about following through on if this is true, then what are the consequences of my behavior if I choose to break this commandment? And so I thought this was also especially well done. Gatien's response also exhibits a lot of these same qualities. It's so nicely organized and formal. Also what's interesting about his response is the interweaving then of the question of the ethical dilemma and the traditional texts that form the basis for these traditional frameworks of morality. And his example has to do with taxes, which I thought was especially pertinent in today's society and culture about our concern about, what should we pay in taxes, what's a fair amount. And so these issues of justice and fairness are also present us with wonderful opportunities for ethical dilemmas. He gives a great example from Henry David Thoreau's Civil Disobedience essay about Thoreau's argument that a man of conscience should not pay taxes if he feels his government is corrupt. But Gattienne's discussion goes on looking at the larger consequences of this action. Perhaps these government actions are corrupt in one particular area, but are fair and ethical in other respects. And so Gattienne's argument is that in the overall use of these taxes, that perhaps we should pay our taxes. And so this was also another wonderful example, I thought, of a way of responding to the prompts. And so I wanted to say thank you very much for these. I wanted to highlight these. Here's one last one. I'll talk about Kathy's. And this is also a wonderfully comprehensive response. She used, as many of you did, the Janoff Bullman essay in regards to prescriptive and proscriptive moralities. Once again, Kathy's response in regards to the questions that might be raised also refer to this business about divorce and adultery. And so here also is sort of an interesting question, which raises this idea about the notion of the conflict between our conscience and sometimes our duty or obligations. And I think, as you'll see in the future readings, even beginning next week with, or this week with Confucius and the Quran, we'll also see some of these traditional sort of precepts and notions which conflict in some ways with our modern sensibilities about the problems that we face in regards to the duties and obligations that we have as parents or children, brothers and sisters and so forth, as responsible employees, to the larger obligations that we have in our lives, and also to the kinds of virtues that we espouse for ourselves and others. And so thanks again. I wanted to bring these to your attentions. The one last thing that I wanted to add too, there's two, if you'll do me the favor, when you save your files or upload them to LiveText, if you would name the file your last name, that would save me a great deal of difficulty. As you can see, when I open Finder and open up my downloads documents, you see I'm looking at week 1. Now here's Dawn has put her name on, but week 1 biblical narratives, I don't know who that is. HUM 420, Kathy's essay. If you put your name on it, then it's easy for me to find that. And so I think that's all I was going to add here. I've opened up the second item that I also wanted to comment on was that I've opened up the quizzes for this week and made those available all week long, just because for whatever reason the second option, which gives me the ability to frame the quiz in terms of its time being available, doesn't seem to be working all that well. So I've just simply opened them up, and I'll keep them open up until Sunday at midnight this week, and I hope perhaps that will be easier for everyone concerned. So that's it from me. Sorry I haven't figured out how to do a screencast with a video cast at the same time. I think I might have to use something other than QuickTime. But I'll post that up. Feel free to give me any questions you have. Look forward to talking with you more on the discussion board this week. Thanks very much.